when Facebook was actively conditioning the electorate to say, hey, listen, we're conducting an election under the most unusual circumstances. It may take a long time before we know the actual results. And then once they declared a winner, then Facebook actively shut down any reporting on possible questions about election integrity issues. So Facebook had their thumb on the scale the entire time. And unfortunately, along with the FBI, it's not the first time. And it just shows some of the forces that can sway American behavior and, unfortunately, political outcomes.
Facebook's head honcho Mark Zuckerberg and his stunning admission on the Joe Rogan podcast that the FBI recommended that he suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story in the weeks preceding the 2020 presidential election. Zuckerberg told Rogan, and I quote, "The FBI, I think, basically came to us, to some folks on our team. You should be on high alert. There was the thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump that's similar to that. So be vigilant." End quote. Well, we later, of course, learned after the election the laptop was not Russian disinformation, but that it was all too real and that it was in the possession of the FBI. Joining us now is Eric Eggers from the Government Accountability Institute. Eric, good to see you.
It's great to be here, Doug, and it's an incredibly important story that we're discussing. What I think we have, and it's very important also to note that the FBI has since pushed back on what Mark Zuckerberg has said. The FBI has said, we didn't mention Hunter Biden by name at all. We said to be on the lookout for possible sources of misinformation. Mark Zuckerberg and the Facebook team took it upon themselves to lower the volume and lower the possible distribution of that New York Post story, while at the same time, it's really important to remember the context, actively working to turn out the Democratic vote. It is a stunning claim by Mark Zuckerberg and then stunning pushback by the FBI. It's really an incredible story.
It really is. So what should we make of it? I think, again, I always come back to this double standard of the way the FBI treated this kind of information and the way they treated Hillary Clinton's use of classified information with kid gloves. In 2016, the summer of 2016, July of 2016, just as the presidential race was heading into the home stretch, James Comey said at that time, although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
That's exactly right. And that's why programs such as yours are so important, because I think they take things in the news and they put them into the appropriate context. So that's what the FBI did 4 years ago. In an effort that would have obviously benefited the Clinton campaign at the potential peril of the Trump campaign. Then in 2020, what's happened is they went the other way, but once again, not in favor of the Trump campaign, potentially in favor of his opposition. This time it seems to have worked. And we know that the FBI had agents that were sort of sending signals to not just Facebook, but other media outlets that this was potential misinformation, even though we now know that even the New York Times and NBC News is saying, no, it's confirmed. All the information in there suggests that Hunter Biden was actively selling influence to his father, former vice president, and then presidential candidate Joe Biden. So that's confirmed. We also now know that up to 80% of the people, according to one New York Post poll, said that if that information had been out there in October ahead of the 2020 election, it absolutely would have swung the election. So no less than a decision by the FBI in conjunction with mainstream media outlets, along with Facebook, actually led to potentially an alteration of the outcome of an actual presidential election. At the same time, right, when Facebook was actively conditioning the electorate to say, hey, listen, we're conducting an election under the most unusual circumstances. It may take a long time before we know the actual results. And then once they declared a winner, then Facebook actively shut down any reporting on possible questions about election integrity issues. So Facebook had their thumb on the scale the entire time. And unfortunately, along with the FBI, it's not the first time. And it just shows some of the forces that can sway American behavior and, unfortunately, political outcomes.
You've just mentioned that poll that was reported in the New York Post, which originally reported the Hunter Biden laptop story and was shadow banned. Picking up from the New York Post story on this new poll, which you cited, a similar percentage, quoting, a similar percentage also said that they're convinced that information on the computer is real, with just 11% saying they thought it was created by Russia, according to a survey conducted by the New Jersey-based Telemetrica Institute of Policy and Politics. This would have changed the outcome of the presidential election.
Yeah, at this point, the only people that think the Hunter Biden information wasn't real are the people that are regularly watching MSNBC, because everybody else has seen the fact that the New York Times has confirmed the reporting, CBS News has confirmed the reporting, NBC has confirmed it. Even the FBI themselves have said, there's actually some obvious credibility to this point. So we've seen a massive sea change. Even the Department of Justice is actively investigating Hunter Biden for potential tax issues that are hinted at and potentially being confirmed by the laptop. So everyone else now knows this is a real story. Now, at the Government Accountability Institute, we've been reporting on this for over 4 years. We also have been reporting on the power companies like Facebook and Google have to put their thumb and potentially tilt election outcomes. I mean, imagine the power if Facebook sent a message to just Democratic voters and said, hey, it's a reminder to get out the vote. We would have no way of knowing if they did that. It would be an incalculable contribution to Democrat candidates, potentially in violation of FEC law. And oh, by the way, we don't even have to just imagine that's something they did speculatively and secretly on their social media platform. They actively did that through the mechanisms of local government, through Mark Zuckerberg's donations to election offices all across the country. They laundered nonpartisan money in political operations through get out the vote efforts that were conducted in the name of global health. So Facebook has blood all over their hands, and ultimately the real victim is American democracy.
Well, all of these mechanisms still remain in place as we approach the 2022 election season. That's what's really troubling to me right now, because no corrections have been made.
No, that's absolutely correct. I think the only potential thing that has been done is that states like Florida and other states have banned the receipt of nonprofit money like Mark Zuckerberg's donations because they saw what happened before. They know it smells funny, and so they're trying to keep any whiff of impropriety out of the 2024 presidential election. I think what you'll also see is a continued crackdown on ballot security and election integrity in terms of rules and regulations surrounding absentee ballots, mail-in ballots, that sort of thing. But you're absolutely right. What possible guarantee do we have that the next damning piece of evidence that potentially makes the Biden administration look even more corrupt than we already know them to be comes out? What's to stop Facebook, Twitter? Twitter, by the way, has said they were wrong to actively suppress that New York Post story. Facebook says, well, we went a little different way than Twitter. We just turned the volume down on it. But what's to stop any of these tech conglomerates from deciding to make it happen again, especially if Trump's on the ballot or somebody that's even as contentious from a liberal perspective like a Governor DeSantis? So you're absolutely right. And then, oh, by the way, Doug, think about this perverse incentive structure. Let's say Facebook kind of violated what they claim to be, which is just a platform and not a publisher, right? Because they made an active content decision. Well, who's going to punish them for that? Not the Biden administration that directly benefited from that action as a publisher to suppress the information. So you're absolutely right to raise questions and be troubled because the incentive structures seem to only favor the bad actors and the continual double standard that conservatives receive from social media and mainstream news outlets.
And Eric, last question. If President Trump does run again in 2024, he's still repeating the mantra that the 2016 election was rigged. We've cited some examples in this interview that there is some evidence that it was rigged. I don't think in the way that he believes it was rigged, but in all the developments leading up to that election and the systems that were put in place leading up to that election. But what do you do with over 70 million Americans who voted for him and many of whom believe that? I oftentimes point to the existence of a non-shooting civil war in this country. And this kind of doubt among 70 million people is going to do nothing to remedy that.
So that's one of the reasons. It's a great point, Doug. And at the end of the day, we're all Americans. And America and democracy relies on the peaceful transfer of power. And the peaceful transfer of power relies on essentially some level of trust in whatever the Democratic outcome is, even if we disagree with it. What I've said, look, I wrote a book on voter fraud in 2018. What I think we can all agree on is that the election conditions in 2020 were unlike any election conditions that ever occurred historically. People cast ballots outside of the politically sterile environments we've always come to rely on. And so I think that, if anything else, is the one condition that needs to change. We don't need to have political operatives helping people fill out, collect, and deliver ballots because that just erodes trust. So I think that's all the more reason why states like Florida and other states have taken some steps to try to restore confidence in the process. But you're absolutely right, and I think hopefully other people pay attention. I think it will get worse before it gets better. I think these midterm elections, we will see some concerns for exactly the reasons as you noted. People are running for Secretary of State in Michigan. People are running for governor in Arizona that believe that the 2020 election was outright stolen. and have said they will refuse to concede. So I think that will create some tension that ultimately future legislation will have to address ahead of the 2024 election.
Mm-hmm. Eric Eggers from the Government Accountability Institute. Really appreciate your perspective. Thanks so much. Hi, I'm Doug McKelway, and thank you for watching Centerpoint. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Leave a comment below and keep the conversation going by sharing this video with a friend who needs to see it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.